shaping soft rolls. I'm going to show you single knots and double knots. To start off, we take this dough which has been rested for 45 minutes, punched, and has rested again for 15 minutes. We're going to put it through the bun divider and cut it into the 36 pieces. Just use the rolling pin to fit it in. Put some flour in here, make sure it doesn't stick. Flour on the top, and I'm going to put it through the bun divider. Okay, so we take this tray, slide it in the bun divider, pull down the handle, and at this point all it does, it flattens out the dough. Once you hold it down, push the handle back, which releases the knives. The knives are cutting down, and this cuts into 36 equal pieces. That saves all the scaling, and all the units are exactly the same weight. So we go back to the table. I'll show you the next step, the rounding of the soft rolls. Okay, so what we do now, we take this 36 pieces, put it on the table. The first thing is clean off as much flour as possible, because it will interfere with the shaping. We may even have to add some moisture on the table so we can actually move this product. Okay. So we take it apart, we line it up, and we have 36 pieces. So we do each step with all 36 pieces. So between all the steps, there is enough time to rest the dough again. And the soft rolls should always be covered to prevent them from drying out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just going to make sure there's no flour on here. It's going to make it a lot easier to do the shaping, and I'm going to use some plastic wrap to keep the product covered. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one. So I'm going to show you just with a single one what's going to happen. Rounding is getting the dough into a smooth roll. So by pulling the outsides towards the center, we're producing a smooth skin. Now what we do is we take the hand, cover it, and with the pressure of the palm of your hand and the table, we're rolling the soft roll, and it turns into a smooth ball by twisting the base together. Okay? So this is the first step. So we do all 36 pieces, get all 36 pieces to this step. This is the first shape of any future shape in the product. Doesn't matter what shape you do, rounding is always the first step. Okay? So if you're not familiar with this technique, you can start off with just folding it in a few times, then flip it over, and you have to adjust the strength, because if you press too much, because really press hard, I'm breaking the gluten strands, and you can see the difference between a smooth texture and one that has been overworked. So we're going to put this aside to rest it longer. If the dough is too dry, if it doesn't slide, we're just going to put a little bit of water on the table. And usually works just by putting water on your hand, and that will remove all the flour that's on the table. Okay? Now we're doing it with 2 hands. Once you know how to do it with one hand, then you try the second hand. And if the product gets too dry, if the table becomes too dry again, if needed, you can add a bit of extra moisture. So just enough that it becomes smooth. We keep everything covered. Just long enough that you feel that the roll becomes tight and smooth. Okay, so once we have this done with all 36 pieces, then we go to the next step. Okay, so now we have the rolls at the different stages. I'm going to show you again how to do each stage. That's the rounding, stage 1, stage 2. The next stage after that is the actual shaping of the products. So once the rounding is done, I just flatten them out, fold them over, one roll, and that's it. Put them under the plastic, and we're just going to finish all those, and then go to the next step. So the object is to have as little air bubbles in here as possible, so when they proof that we don't have interference with the air bubbles. Okay. So with all 36, then we take the first one again, and now the next step is going from one hand rolling into 2 hand, and have them just slightly tapered towards the end. Put them back in here. What this does, it allows the gluten to relax between the different stages, because it is impossible to get from a round piece to a piece that's approximately a foot long in one stage. Okay, so the length I'm doing is about 2 hand width at this point, and then the next stage is getting them ready for the actual shaping. Okay, so we have 2 baking trays ready. I'm going to put 18 buns on each tray, so they have enough room for expansion. And this is the egg wash, which we're going to brush the finished buns with to get some shine and some additional color on the product. So now the first ones, they are ready. They have been sitting for a while now. So we start with the ones we finished first. So now we just expand this to maybe another half a hand width. I'm doing a single knot with this shape. So the single knot, I hold it and I wrap the dough around 2 fingers, and the longer end I'll pull through the hole and tuck the other end under. So this is what we call a single knot. You don't want to make it too tight, because it has to expand. Once they come out of the oven, this should be about 3 to 4 times this size. Okay? So we put them right onto a tray, so we don't have to move them anymore. So I'm going to do this once more. Expand them a little bit longer. Wrap the strand around 2 fingers. Big enough an opening to bring one end in, and the other end is tucked underneath for a single knot. Okay. 3 across, 6 lengthwise. Okay. One different version, it's still the same shape, is having both ends visible, which would look something like this. You still do the same shaping, pull this a little bit longer, and instead of tucking this end under, we have it visible from both sides. Okay, that's a second version of the single knot. Just do one more with this shape. Just pull it a bit. We have about the same distance in the 2 ends. Okay, now for the double knot, we have to add one more stage because they have to be a little bit longer than the single knots. So we roll them out to approximately 3 hand width. Prepare about 3 or 4. Again, to have enough time for the gluten to relax for the actual shaping. Okay. Now the double knot is basically 2 single knots beside each other. So what I'm doing is I'm folding this in half. Now I do a single knot on each side. Because they are much thinner, I'm just wrapping it around 1 finger rather than 2 and pull it in. I'm doing the same thing on this side. And I have what we call a double knot. Okay. Now they will expand, of course, once they go into the proofer, and they're going to fill out the shapes. So again, pull it in the center, divide it into 2 equal parts. Just use 1 finger this time to make an opening. Do the same thing on this side. And we have the double knot. Okay, so these are 2 very basic shapes you'll find in every pastry shop. There's of course many different additional types you eventually will learn and get familiar with. Filled on the tray, we're gonna put some egg wash on it. After that, we put them into the proof box, which should take approximately 15 minutes to double them in size. And then after that, they go into the oven. So They're all spaced out now, so they can expand evenly. Not too much egg wash, so it doesn't discolor the product. And put an even coating on the buns, again, which produces additional shine and helps with the coloring of the rolls as well. Okay, so they're ready to go into the proof box. Okay, so we have the proof box ready. It's set at about 100 Fahrenheit, which is the perfect temperature for the yeast bacteria to grow. There's a pan with water on the bottom, which produces some humidity, so we don't have to cover them, so this way the product doesn't dry out. We'll be in here for approximately 15 to 20 minutes.